Welcome back to this week's episode of In Distress, a podcast where I talk about nonsense and the come to my childhood bedroom. First of all, guys, if you're here watching, listening, whatever you're doing, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I know that I've been flip-flopping a little bit about when this gets posted and stuff like that. So if you stuck around and just have been listening, I really appreciate you. There are so many other things to say. You know, if you want to stay up to date on when I'm posting, I have a business account and I post whenever I post something related to anything on YouTube or something. So if you, or the podcast, this podcast or the other one, but if you want to stay up to date on that stuff, like subscribe here or follow me over on that on my business account on social media. It's on Instagram where I post that stuff. But yeah, and usually I have the updates of stuff like that. I actually I have a lot of things I want to say this week and I'm really excited to be on. And I know a lot of people don't listen or watch this podcast, but I'm just really excited about it. Like I'm really happy about this week. I've been thinking, or really it's probably just because I went to go hang out with my friends. The other day was my friend's birthday and I finished that flask. It was great. Anyways, but we went out and I fell asleep. I was at the function. I was up there and I was having a good time and then battery just ran low. You know what I mean? Anyways, but we had a really great time. And then, we all went to the movies and hung out and stuff. And again, like whenever I hang out with my friends and even just like go and see my family or hang out with my family, I don't know what it is, but it's just like a feeling that comes over me of like, I'm just so grateful to be experiencing these people at this time. And I talked about this last episode. I have never lost anybody like super close to me. And I think for me, like every day I know that is something that will change, and like me not experiencing grief and I'm like 23 is such a blessing. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just always happy to be hanging out with my friends and family. Like I'm so grateful because there really was a time when I didn't really have friends like that. And to have friends now and like to enjoy their company and to hang out with them and stuff is so special. And again, I'm beyond words of how grateful I am. It's the same way that like I'm so grateful to like the people who have been like listening to my other podcast, Girls Who Like Hoops, if you don't know about it. Like I'm just so grateful because it is like I've always enjoyed talking about basketball. I've always loved basketball, but I was always like, there's just not a space for that to exist, or it didn't seem like there was a space for that to exist. And now as I'm getting older, I'm kind of like understanding that it's about you creating those spaces and like having the courage to create those spaces. And even if nobody shows up to those spaces, like, like, how do you feel about that? Like, what are you doing that for? Like, what are you creating that space for? And what's your intention with it? And the kind of the same thing with this podcast, like my intention with this podcast for a long time, I didn't know what it was. But once I started like really thinking about it and I had like my classes and stuff, and it was like time for me to explain why I do this podcast, and things started becoming clear. And it was really just like, I like talk about a lot of things. I'm interested in so many things, and there are problems that I face in my regular everyday life, yeah, but also there are so many things that I love to talk about, like politics and music and movies and TV shows and all that stuff. And I like to do commentary on society, and I like to talk about societal issues and stuff like that. And I would like that to be a place, like for this to be a place where like, people can show up with their opinions, or I can show up with my opinions and then just say them. Maybe sometimes we laugh, sometimes we cry, sometimes we just think. And again, so grateful for this platform and all that stuff, but enough of that. I'm always doing too much, but again, so grateful for anybody watching, listening to anything that I do. I really appreciate it, and I don't think that there will ever come a point when I'm not appreciative of that. Again, I do think that good comes with the bad, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but I'm very grateful for this. I never thought that I would have this, and I obviously never thought that I would be unemployed at 23 over the summer, and looking to my camera and believing that there are better things ahead for me. So yeah, anywho, I went to the park with Mary the other day, close friend of the podcast, and it was the day that Biden has stepped down from running for president. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great because we have something to talk about, because the week before then was the Trump situation, and we were supposed to go to the park then. And I was like, dang, that would have been so great for us to talk about at the park, because it was around the time that we would have been going when it happened and was on the news and everything. And we talked about it on the phone, so it was fine. But I went to go visit my grandma that week. And then, sorry, I'm saying a lot. My bad. it's something we're gonna have to live with. I fear something we're gonna have to live with. Anyways, we went to the park this past week, and it was so fun. And again, when I hang out with Mary, when I hang out with my family, I just so much love, so much joy. And we were just kind of walking around the park and talking about a lot of big concepts like, friendship and marriage and what we want that to look like, what we want our future to look like, our career, talking about politics and religion and faith and talking about a lot of different things. And it was just crazy because I don't remember who brought it up exactly, but it was like one of us said like, it is crazy that like just being outside, because we ended up like just sitting out there like at this picnic table thing, and we were just like looking around, at nature, and it was like, it's really crazy that just being outside sometimes and just taking in nature is sometimes the thing that keeps you sane or like stops you from spiraling. Like, it's kind of like when you're looking at the world, because I think it was actually Mary who brought it up. We were talking about how much bigger the world is than us, and how like things feel so catastrophic in your life. But when you like think about it, if you look at your phone right now and you zoom out, there's so much world and there's so many other things that are going on in the world and in life that, yeah, things feel really big in the moment, but nothing is really ever as big as it seems. And I think being outside sometimes and like just being in nature and taking it in can really help you like change your perspective on that and really like put things into perspective that, hey, maybe this isn't like as big of a thing as I'm thinking it is, or maybe there is a way to still have hope. And we even talked about like having hope in humanity and all of that stuff that I talk about on this podcast. And I talked about last week because it was before I had posted the episode, but I had already recorded it. Anyways, but something that I've really been thinking about lately is sometimes I wonder what makes humans humans. Like, I feel like I'm saying like a lot, my apologies, but again, something we just have to live with. I feel like when we're talking about what makes a human, what I always had heard and have learned in like psych classes and stuff, or when we have the conversation with people, it's always about like the environments that you grow up in, like your family, your parents, like all of that stuff, and how that comes together in your life experiences, how that all comes together and makes you you. But I also feel like sometimes, because I've been thinking about this because I've been watching a lot of movies lately and I love watching TV shows, and I feel like there's so many lessons to be learned in them. And actually, that's going to lead me to a different topic in a second. But I've been thinking about how or what people I have encountered in my life have gone through to get to the point of them like being in my life right now and like me loving them. Like what were the environments and what were the experiences and what was like, how did you grow up to make you to be in front of me right now? And when I think about that, it makes me bring up something else that I think we don't really talk about when we talk about what makes a human a human. I really do think that what people consume also affects them, because it's kind of like the concept that authors or even like songwriters talk about sometimes, about how, oh, like, there are parts of these characters I'm gonna take with me, or like there's a part of me in every character that I write or in every story that I write. And even like songwriters kind of have like that same kind of like concept as well, as like every song or every album, it's like a piece of me and I take that with me. And I think it's crazy to think about, but I really do think that the things that you consume, like even when it comes to movies or TV shows, those things shape you into the person that you are also. Because it's like, if authors and songwriters, there's a piece of them in all of these things, and they're taking those things with them, like the lessons that they learn. And because I actually have talked about on here before, like I think that sometimes you take the very best parts of the people that you love with you. Like there are a lot of characteristics and things that I have admired in like friends or teachers or whatever, and I was like, dang, like if I could have any trait, like I really love this trait about somebody. So like I'm trying to think of one. I don't really know if I've encountered somebody in my life who I felt was unwavering. However, when I would watch TV shows and movies, a lot of the characters that I like admired the most or related to the most, or like if there was like, oh, if there's a way that I want to be when I get older, like if there's a characteristic or a trait that I want to have when I get older, it's this. And for me, a lot of times it would be like the fact that people were so loyal to, things that they believed in, or like that they were so unwavering, or that they were so steadfast about things. And honestly, like to have something that you want to be, or something, or a characteristic that like a characteristic or trait that you aspire to have in your life, to have that, and then to have people kind of point that out, I think is like honestly one of the greatest compliments. And has happened to me actually. Like I actually had somebody describe me in that way, and it was like, oh wow, it's crazy to think that the person that you want to be, like you're in the middle of becoming. And I think when that person told me that, I was like, oh wow, like again, like one of the greatest compliments and everything. Like I think I actually ended up having this conversation with Mary as well about how, you know, I would, like I said, I went to go see my grandma, and I hope this isn't boring. Who cares? This is my podcast. Yeah, who cares? Yeah, who cares? I actually ended up having a conversation with Mary about this, but I was talking to her about how I had gone to see my grandma the other weekend, and hearing the way that like my grandma like thinks of me, or like speaks about me to other people, I don't even know how to really explain it. Like and I don't mean this like in a conceited way, but it's like to know that somebody I care about and love so much thinks about me in a certain way and says certain things about me to everybody that they meet and describes me in a certain way. Like honestly, it makes me extremely emotional, because again, this is like, I love my grandma so much, and there are so many admirable things about her that I love. And to have, and like to know that she thinks of me in a certain way and shares that with other people that she cares about and she knows and she loves, means so much to me. And I think that goes with like anybody. Like anytime anybody is like kind of like, oh, something, Tori, you know what I like about you, XYZ. And it's just like, wow, like the fact that you see me that way, that's great. And the fact that like, I think what's been really great about getting older is when people do bring up those things, it's like synonymous with the person that I've wanted to become, or like that I've wanted to be as I got older. And again, to hear that and like to know that you're kind of becoming like exactly who you're meant to be, and also the person that you've wanted to be, is so, it's honestly like I don't even have the words for it. Like it's I'm speechless. But anyways, I was talking about TV shows and movies. And again, like I said, I think a lot of the characters that I've admired, and even like characters now that I really love, like I've been watching a lot of House of the Dragon lately, and one of the characters that I like really admire, or really like admire in a lot of TV shows and movies, is like a strong like female character. And sometimes like that's not something that you always get from every piece of media, but you know exactly like what you're looking for and what you've been looking for when you see it. And for me, it is like the way that like Targaryen women are written by like showrunners, like in House of the Dragon or in Game of Thrones, like the way that they're written as like these powerful people. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like they have like this certain energy about them that they're so like 100% sure of themselves. And that's what, like, if there's like one thing that I like still think that I'm aspiring to be like, it's that. Obviously, in like the context of like still being selfless and not making things about me, but like if there was like one thing that I like, if there's one trait that I'm still developing and would still love to have, it's just like being 100% into something, which I don't have a problem with that part, with like devotion and like dedication and stuff. I don't have a problem with that part. It's more so the confidence that comes with it. Like, I'm so sure of this thing. I believe in this thing so much. Nobody can change my mind about it. And that's the thing. And I love that. And I'm not saying that that's always like the best thing, because that actually leads me to this other thing of like, I think I saw a TikTok the other day of, actually I've seen a couple of TikToks about how people have kind of been talking about how, in my timeline in my echo chamber is like fairly liberal, right? Or just, it's not fairly liberal, but I think it's more moderate and liberal, and somewhere in between that spectrum than it is conservative. And so I've been seeing a lot of people kind of talk about what it's like to have family members who are becoming like very conservative and like are kind of like very far right leaning, and how it's impacted their relationships with their family members. Because it's like, and what I really noticed is like people kind of talking about how there's just so much anger involved, like immediately, like the second you have like a differing of opinion, like there's so much anger involved in that interaction now, instead of it just being like, and this kind of goes back to the conversation that I had last week about how emotional things are. And I think that when you really think about this, I think that like the pandemic had a lot to do with that. I think that there are, like, I think everybody kind of, not even just to say that only certain people struggle with this, I think everybody definitely struggles to know exactly what to do with their emotions. And that's, first of all, super valid. Again, like even people were in the comments of the video, and I'm going to link it down below if you want to watch the video. But the girl was really just talking about like, people are angry and they're upset and they're very emotional about that. And I think that you see that in every aspect of life. Like when it comes to, and not to say that the police haven't always been like this way, but like interactions that police are having with American citizens or Black people, but that's always kind of been a little, but like, I don't know. It's just, there's just like so much like anger all the time, it feels like, and in everything. And it's so, and it's not even that it's always anger, but it's just so much layered, thick emotion and everything. Everything is emotionally charged. It's like you can't have a debate with people sometimes anymore, depending on who it is. It's like you can't have a debate or an argument about something anymore without it becoming like this super emotionally charged situation. And you know, that's leading to like different types of violence and other things. And it's just like, sometimes I really am just like, where did this all come from? Like this, it's almost like extremely overwhelming. Not even almost, it is extremely overwhelming to like know that everything is so emotional. It even comes down to like, oh, somebody cut you off while you were driving and now somebody is pulling a weapon out on you. Like, it's stuff like that. Like, these are everyday interactions. And it's like, it really is like, where is all this anger coming from? Because it didn't used to be like this. And I don't know. I'm not to say that that people have never been angry before, because that's not what I'm saying. But it's just like everything is so emotional and everything is like super draining. And it's just like, I don't know what we do about that. I'm confused by that. But anyways, that was just like a side note. Anyways, it's time to get down to the nitty gritty. I have a couple of things here. I'm not going to keep you guys for very long. But here's the thing. I think it was last week, or like it was in the back half of last week, I had a little controversial TikTok, okay? And here's the thing. Here's the thing I'm struggling with. My controversial TikToks, there was one time I did a controversial TikTok and it was not my intention for it to be controversial. But then there was another time when I made a controversial TikTok, but I was definitely trying to be controversial. The problem here is that regardless, the controversial TikToks are making the money, right? So now it's like, do I continue to be messy and controversial? Or do I do the right thing, try my best to not be controversial? If it leads something controversial, it is what it is. Or is there a secret third thing? Because here's the thing, actually. I don't ever want my content to just, and this is not the right words to put together, but they're the words I'm going to put together. A lot of times when I go on TikTok and I be scrolling about, I'll get TikToks about like different women, like, yeah, like if you're seeing like your views decrease from your usual stuff, then like they were like, I won't make a TikTok about that stuff anymore. I won't make TikToks like that anymore. And I'm going to be super honest with you. I think to a certain degree that is so limiting. I do. I think for me, I never want my content to solely only be about money and how much money I'm making. And I get it. Having money, so great, so awesome. At the same time, if I'm not making the content that I really love, what am I really doing? Like, I love the WNBA so bad. I love women's basketball. I love basketball in general. I love talking about basketball. At the end of the day, though, like I've said before, I love music and I love TV and I love movies and I love people and I just like to talk and I like to joke around and I like to share stories and yap. And if I just censored everything that I did just because it wasn't getting the views or it wasn't getting the engagement or it wasn't getting the money that the other stuff was getting, like, it's kind of like, again, I do think at some point you do have to ask yourself, what am I doing this for? Like, what's my intention behind this? I'm not saying that if you do make content on the internet for money specifically, that's a bad thing, that you should change that. For me, it does have to be about a little bit more than that for me. Like, yeah, money, so great. So great. Love, who doesn't love money? You know what I'm saying? At the same time, if I take the money away from it, what do I have? Am I happy with the product? Am I happy with the things that I said? Am I happy with what I did there? Was I happy while I did it? For me, I think, yeah, money's really great. I would love to have money so that it could take away some of the stress in my life. At the same time, though, my whole thing since I was like 21 with this podcast has been, I'm just trying to figure out how I'm happy. And I'm not going to be happy every single day. But if I can be happy at least 50-50, and really if I can be happy more of the time, that would be really great. I understand I'm not going to be happy every day, but if I could be happy, or if I could find little bits of things to be happy about, I think that I would be pleased with how my life is going. And so without that money, it does come down to, why do I make content on the internet? Why do I want to do that? And it's because it's fun and I like it and I enjoy being creative and I like to talk about the things that I enjoy. And I want, again, it really is about community for me. Like, I want to be able to build community. If people show up to that community, that is so great, so lovely. I found my people. If they don't, though, am I still happy with what I did there? Yes. At least for right now. Yes. And yeah, I just did want to say that. I did also kind of want to have a conversation about something else that I had Googled. It was about, what was it about? I was about nuance and context, because that's something that I have been heavily talking about is important on this podcast. But I ended up seeing this TikTok of somebody that I've been following for a very long time. I don't always agree with her perspectives or opinions or whatever, but again, you're not going to agree with everybody in life, so it is what it is. But I think that she has her moments, and when her moments are great, they're great. She ended up talking about how things are kind of not really, how they're becoming not really about, you need to think the way I think, but it's also becoming more about, you need to feel the way that I feel. And the example that she used was like some internet drama stuff that was going on. And I'm trying to think if I want to use those examples or not. In this case, I'll use one and then I'll try to come up with my own. There was this woman, really. There was this woman who, it was like Ballerina Farms. If you don't know what it is, I'm going to give you the brief rundown for a second. Basically, she was a ballerina and she got into Juilliard. And Juilliard is like one of the top performing arts schools. And, she got in and she was doing ballet and she met her man, and her man's family is rich. And he wanted to have kids and he wanted to start a family and a life. And they moved out to a farm, and she gave up being a ballerina to, you know, go and be a mother and a wife. And she gave that up. And the other day, what had happened was, it was her birthday. And apparently she had been talking about how she wanted to go to Greece, I think was where it was. She wanted to go somewhere. Okay. She wanted to go on a trip. Oh, I know. And she wanted to go on said trip. And when it was her birthday, they got the camera out. And if you're hearing my dog whine, it's because my father just left and he is hurting right now. Anyways, they went, it was her birthday. Let me get back on track. It was her birthday and she gets this package. He gave her the package and started recording. She opens up the package. It's an egg apron. You know, like for when you go out to the chicken thing and you collect the eggs. It was one of those. And I'm not going to say that you could see the disappointment on her face because maybe I read too much into it. But that happened. And so it became this bigger conversation because an article had just come out about somebody interviewed her and, well, yeah, they interviewed her and the husband was there and he answered some of the questions and she answered some of the questions and it had people like, oh, wow, I feel so bad for her, XYZ. But then when we're talking about that concept that I brought up, it's about feel the way that I feel, not just think. It's things evolving from think the way that I think to feel the way that I feel. The evolution of that being, it's like, in this context of the situation, there's like, it's not just two sides, but like the main two sides are, I feel bad for her. And then there's people who are like, I don't feel bad for her because she chose this life, right? And so it's kind of like when people go and give their opinion on that sometimes, not everybody, but there are some people or like there are a lot of people, because I'm not even going to sit here and pretend that it's like, oh, this great majority of people who are able to separate the two. People will go and like, let's say something atrocious happened, right? Not even using that concept. So we told that story. Do with that what you will. A lot of people know Gypsy Rose's story. We're talking about how people feel about her, how people think about her. Again, things are evolving from think like I think to feel how I feel. And if you don't feel the way that I feel, you're wrong, is kind of how people are starting to go about things, right? It's kind of like when you have sympathy for somebody or you have empathy for somebody's situation, people are kind of trying to like twist it into something else. Perfect example of this is there was a this girl, Brooke. I don't know how to say her last name, so I'm not even going to do it. This girl, Brooke from the Cancel podcast, she went on the internet and was kind of like, got really emotional and was like crying about President Biden stepping down because she was like talking about how like she was sad because the situation made her think of her grandfather. And, you know, it made her think about somebody who wants something so bad and having to give that up. And he had to do that. Like he was forced into giving something up that he really wanted, but it's just not going to happen, right? And so she was emotional about that. And there were a lot of people who were like, you should be ashamed of yourself for feeling that way. And actually you should be, he needed to do that. And you should not be crying because he did this, that, and the third. And it's like, people aren't allowed to have nuance and context. I understand completely where she's coming from. Yeah. If you look at this from Joe Biden's perspective of like having to step down or having to give up on something that you've wanted, having to give up on that sucks. Having to give up on a dream or on a goal that's something that you really wanted and have been working for basically your entire life. Your entire career has been built up for this moment. And you have to give up. You have to give it up. Whether or not, it doesn't matter what the reason is. You have to give that thing up. And immediately when like, it's like you don't agree, or maybe it's not even that you don't agree with that perspective. Maybe you just see multiple perspectives. People find a problem with that. And I think when we're talking about nuance and context, what I really struggle with is like having to explain nuance and context. Like I find that very, very ridiculous because I don't get it. I I don't get it. Like, it's like nothing is black and white. And it makes me so sad to think that people believe that the world is black and white and that, there's not multiple, like, perspectives on everything. It's like, yeah, of course, I do feel bad for Miss Girl. She gave up a lot. She sacrificed a lot to be at the place where she is right now. And it is like, yeah, I do feel bad about that. At the same time, as much empathy as I have for that situation, people are still kind of right. Like, yeah, at the end of the day, like, this is a life that you chose. You can choose to not have that life. There's just a lot of perspectives. You can have empathy, you can hold empathy for somebody and also understand that there are other factors here. Like, you can feel bad for somebody and you can also be like, you have to live with the things that you, like, with the decisions that you've made. And that goes for a lot of different things. And like, I even ended up making a video about this whole situation that had happened, and I'm not going to get into it, but it ended with people being like, oh, so you're saying don't hold people accountable, or taking a very different message than what I had intended. And it was like, I never said that. Like, it's crazy. Like, and this is like when it does get to the point of like, I understand why people get canceled or caught up in bad moments, because people are constantly taking things out of context. If you just go and take out one of the things that I said here, I'm sure I could get cooked, canceled. And if you go and put that context back into whatever I said, it's probably just like, oh, what she said wasn't bad at all. But people are constantly not understanding the context and nuance behind a lot of the things that people say. And they're taking everything as like 100% fact. Or they're taking things as like, let me think. They're either taking things as a 100% fact, or they're not even getting the entirety of the context. It's like somebody watching like 30 seconds of a TikTok and then they start commenting and it's like, okay, whatever you just said was probably answered in minute 100 and minute 120. At 1 minute and 20 seconds, whatever you commented was probably addressed, but you wouldn't know that because you only watched the first 30 seconds of the video. And it has just gotten to the point now where I'm just like, I'm trying my best to just accept it. Like, some people, you either get it or you don't at this point. Like, it is getting to the point where it's just like, I feel like I have to contextualize and explain the nuance of like everything that I say. And it should not be that way. This is where the education system is failing. This is where people are failing. Like, sometimes you have to think one more step. Sometimes it's like people just like stop. They stop thinking. And it's like, no. You have to think 2 more times. Think 2 more times and you'll be there. You get to the destination. They're knocking on the door and the door is not open. The key, you can't find the key. You got to keep thinking to find the key. Anyways, but I don't know. It's a very frustrating situation. But at the same time, it's like, I can't and I will not keep like explaining everything, because there are some things that don't need to be explained. Like, and again, this still comes down to the whole thing about like people wanting to hear and people be wanting to argue. They definitely know what they're doing. Like, if I've said this 20,000 times, I like waffles. All of a sudden somebody's in the comments, oh, so you hate pancakes. You can like 2 things at once. You can have multiple emotions for the same situation. You can feel empathy for somebody and also be like, I mean, I can feel as bad as I want for you, but it doesn't change the situation. You're still in it and you still did make those decisions. Yeah. And at the same time, there are a lot of times when it's just like, there was in the situation that I was having or talking about on TikTok, it was like this girl had gone and made a mistake on live. And there were a lot of people who were like, oh, so you're saying don't hold people accountable. And what I was saying was, maybe we should stop recording everything. Maybe we should stop going live around everybody, because you don't know what they're going to say. Like, I was talking about this from like a social media standpoint of like, hey, maybe we should just stop going live. Maybe we should stop telling all our business. Maybe we should stop doing this, that, and the third. And all of a sudden it's, oh, so you're saying don't hold people accountable. That's not what I said at all. I actually never said that. I never said that. And that would have never even been something that I would say. I am 1000% for holding people accountable. Everybody needs to be held accountable for stuff. But again, it's like, at this point, if you're just going to take what you want from the video, do it then. Like, it really is just getting to the point where it's just like, I have to accept, because later on, I went back and gave some context of the situation. And it was like, people still like, well, she was still wrong for... I didn't say she wasn't wrong. I said I feel bad for the girl at the same time that, yeah, she didn't react the way that I wanted her to. I think she was wrong for what she did. At the same time, I do feel bad that she's being publicly shamed for what happened, that people are like being really rude to her on the internet. Yeah, because nobody deserves that, because it's not very nice. People saying things to you on the internet as a quick joke, or because you made a mistake, or just people doing that in general, it's not nice and it's rude. And just saying it's not nice sounds very childish. I get it. I know that. But people really don't think about the things that they put on the internet, because they're just like, it's just the internet and it's not my feelings getting hurt. And again, it comes down to you. Yes, that girl she made a mistake and she has to live with the decisions and the consequences of that mistake. At the same time, I do feel bad that she has to learn a hard lesson publicly, that this is not something that will just be like, oh, I made this mistake in private and in secret. No, she made the mistake publicly, and I get it. You have to face the consequences publicly, but also, yeah, we do need to be careful about the things that we're saying about people and to people, whether we know them or not, and whether it's on the internet or not. Like, people have feelings, and I feel like people like to forget that feelings are a thing because it's the internet and because it's not them. You've got to remember all the time that the things you say on the internet are forever, yes, but also people are probably seeing everything you say. You're probably thinking, oh, well, they're not going to see it. I promise you for a fact that girl probably saw almost every single terrible thing that was said to her or said about her. And it just comes down to, I get people make mistakes. We have to let people be human and make those mistakes, whether it's on the internet or not. To a certain degree, it is like you do have to forgive people for things. Or not even that you have to forgive people for things, because you don't have to forgive anybody for anything. But I do wish that people could be more understanding of people making mistakes. And that has been one of my biggest fears ever when it comes to coming on the internet. Because it is like, I am going to make mistakes. And however people react to those mistakes, I have to live with that. And so I try my best to not be controversial and to not say the wrong things. But sometimes you could say all the right things and people still take the context out of it, or people take what they want from what you said. And because there's a lot of emotion and everything, people may choose to argue with you over the things that you said, even if you said all of the right things. And I think that that's a lesson that I'm learning right now, is that regardless of my intent, the impact can be felt differently. And I think, again, like I was telling Xavier this the other day, who's one of my friends, and I was kind of like, it's just something that I have to live with and I have to deal with and I have to come to terms with, that not everybody's always going to, again, I don't care about people not agreeing with me, but not everybody's always going to be able to have the conversations that I'm having. And also, I'm not going to keep, like, sometimes I will, like if it's like something really being taken out of context, yeah, sure. But I don't think anybody should I don't think anybody should have to explain their reasonings for some of the things, for everything that they say and do on the internet. I think it's a little bit ridiculous to expect that that's a necessary thing. And I will not make that a necessary or regular thing for me, because it is, again, we do need to be at the point of understanding that context and nuance exist in everything. And sometimes some people just aren't ready for the conversation. And maybe they'll never be ready for the conversation. Maybe they just can't have the conversation, and that's okay. Then the content wasn't for them. But can't keep getting caught up. And I think that I really struggle with that, because I do get caught up on people taking the things that I say out of context or taking them in the wrong way. But again, something I just have to learn to accept, because if I go and give context and all of that stuff and explain down to the littlest detail everything that I've said and put it in the simplest of terms, there's still going to be somebody who doesn't get it. And even then, it's still like I'm wasting a lot of time doing that. And again, I have to come to acceptance of that. Anywho, last thing I have to say, that was a lot that I said there. I hope it made sense. Sometimes I just be on here yapping and, well, my truth. Anyways, I did want to talk about the final thing here. I hate to bring this up, guys, but we have to have the girl conversation again, because it's baffling to me. I was watching a TikTok and there was this girl and she was like, oh yeah, Ice Spice isn't a girl's girl. And I'm not going to lie, that kind of threw me for a loop in and of itself. I was kind of like, oh wow, I didn't know that, like, we were putting the girl on celebrities, kind of, sort of. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that lady. So it's like, how can I really know if she's a girl's girl? Regardless, I think the girl conversation is a little ridiculous. Yeah, I do. And I've always thought that. And people are going to think that I'm saying that because I'm not a girl's girl. And here's the thing. I think that if I were to put myself up against the girl's girl definition, I would definitely be a girl's girl. I just think it's crazy that, like, this is a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, it almost makes my head hurt. If we're going to be honest, let's be real here. There are going to be moments when, yeah, there's going to be moments when everybody isn't a girl's girl. You know what I mean? Like, there are going to be moments that everybody has when being a girl's girl doesn't suit your intentions. And I think that we have to come to terms with that. We have to have that conversation, right? Because at some point, yeah, your intentions are not going to line up with what it takes to be a girl's girl. And maybe that takes you out of the running of being a girl's girl. But this is what I'm talking about. I sound insane saying these words that I'm putting together, and I'm not insane. These are valid critiques of the girls' girl conversation. The perfect example is this. I had to in my notes, so I'm just going to read from my notes. Great example of this girls situation, conversation, not suiting somebody's intentions is this. Let's say you have a friend who really wants to get married, right? And she's always envisioned that it would be before she turned 28. So let's say, girl, she's 26 now, okay? It's time to kind of start pulling the reins in, okay? So she starts seeing somebody, and let's say at first she didn't know he was in a relationship, but she found out later on, but continued to pursue him. Already not a girl's girl, right? Right? Okay. But this is where it comes in to play for you, right? Okay. Like I said, Miss Girl is 26 now, and she can either drop him or keep it going. The whole thing is that she said she want to have kids and be married and stuff by 28. So, you know, she wants to put in a couple dating years first. She's going to have to, you know what I'm saying? 26, she's going to have to pick this one. She's going to have to pick this one. She keeps it going, the relationship. She keeps it going out of fear because she doesn't think that anybody else will come along, right? He ends up dumping the other girl and proposes to your friend. You and the rest of the group find out, let's say the day before the wedding, how everything really all came about. Because before now, she had just told you guys, oh, I'm seeing somebody. You had met the guy. You guys didn't know anything about him, right? You were just like, oh, he seems okay. He seems fine. Anytime, I've never had a problem with him. And the day before the wedding, you guys find out how the relationship really went down. By definition, she is not a girl's girl, right? She's not a girl's girl. Here's where it comes into play for you, though, about the girl's girl conversation not always lining up with your intentions. Does that make you drop your friend or not, right? And if I'm being 1,000% honest, when we're asking that question, a lot of people I know, they're letting it rock. By definition, she's not a girl's girl. And so if she's not a girl's girl, and you're a friend of that girl, that means that you're not a girl's girl, because when you found out, you let it rock, right? To somebody, you're not a girl's girl. You know what I'm saying? Like, to somebody else, you're not a girl's girl, because that girl who lost her man, she might think that y'all all knew, whether you did or not. You're not a girl's, y'all aren't girls to her, because she's like, well, I lost my man. Those girls aren't girls. And so if you can't always be a girl's girl in everybody's mind, when is it important to be a girl's girl? Like, when are we letting go of the girl's girl conversation? Like, there are times when, again, the intentions of being a girl's girl aren't in line with what you have going for your life. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe old girl had been a girl's girl all her life. Again, she ain't know that man had a girl until later on, but she still pursued, because she said, I'm on a timeline. My intentions are pump out this, get married, pump out this baby, keep it pushing. So now she's not a girl's girl? That's what you're telling me? Now she's not a girl's girl? But she's been a girl's girl all her life. These were extenuating circumstances. What do we do now? And moreover, what do you do now? Because now the question is, do you drop her or not? Because here's the thing. When you ask yourself, is this a friendship I want to throw away? What are the things that you're determining, right? You're not going, do I want to drop my friend? Was she a girl's girl? No. We're no longer friends. Somebody not being a girl's girl, depending on how they weren't a girl's girl, because if it was like, oh, she stole somebody in the group's man, that's different. You know what I'm saying? That's different. But if it's like you don't have no clue who that girl was, well, doesn't have anything to do with me. I just found out yesterday. And maybe even, let's think, maybe you've been friends with Miss Girl since elementary school, middle school, high school, whatever. Y'all have been through years together, and she ain't never did you wrong. And so you're going to drop somebody because they want a girl's girl in one moment? You know what I'm saying? Something that didn't affect you. Again, it's asking yourself, what makes a friendship worth throwing away? And if it's that, oh, one time she wasn't a girl's girl because it didn't align with her intentions, does that make them a terrible friend? Like, maybe Miss Girl has only ever been the bestest friend to you, right? Maybe she has always been there for you, right? Like, when you were down bad and drunk, like she put you in the pajamas, she held the barf bag, she was there for you, right? Or maybe Miss Girl even, when you were standing at a party one day because the boy left you, your boyfriend broke up with you or something, and he just left you for another girl, she was there. She came and drove and picked you up, right? There are all of these things that make you a girl's girl, but the one time you're not a girl's girl, or like if you make a decision that's not girl's girl because you have a different plan for your life, all of a sudden you're wrong? All of a sudden you're the villain? How does that work? How does that work? I think a lot of people on the internet want to believe that they're always going to ride for the girls, right? But when it comes down to their homegirl, a lot of times they aren't keeping that same energy. And if you're not going to keep that same energy, what are we really talking about? You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, there are a lot of women who would turn a blind eye. I'm not even going to say that I wouldn't turn a blind eye. I don't know what I would do in that situation. I need to be in the situation. I would know what she did was messed up, though. I'd be like, yeah, girl, you were wrong as hell for that. But, well, girl, you ain't never did me wrong, so it comes down to that. I think for me, depending on if this person has only ever been a great friend to me, one time she wasn't a girl's girl, I don't know if I'm faulting somebody for one time not being a girl's girl. I don't know if I'm doing that. I don't know if I'm believing that. And anyways, like I said, to me, this conversation is about something else entirely. It's not about being a girl's girl. It's about people wanting to believe they're girls' and wanting to cast judgment when somebody else isn't a girl's girl. I done cracked the case. Yeah. I think people want to believe that they are better than they are. And so they create these different things to kind of separate them from other people, when in reality, we don't need to be doing all that. You know what I mean? I sound crazy. I know. But the girl conversation, it's a little bit ridiculous to me. Are all of the people who has agreed with her and sided with her now and are still her friend, are they not girls, girls because they rode for their girl. So that makes them girls, girls, right? The cycle. And the thing is that there are so many different possibilities of this scenario. And I get that being a girl's girl is about girl code and the idea of sticking together and not being a pick me. But what do you do and believe when the people you love aren't always girls, girls? That's what you need to ask yourself. What do you do in that moment when the person you love ain't a girl's girl? What do you do? Do you drop her? Because if you drop her, you're not a girl's girl. Are you seeing what I'm saying? For me, though, I'm not necessarily only a person's friend because of them being a girl's girl. Like, if you're a girl's girl, like, that is so great, you know? But there are other elements to friendships and to relationships. So now the question is really about how many morality points does somebody lose with you if they aren't a girl's girl? And then how does that affect the rest of the friendship? Or how does that go about the friendship stuff later on? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a big conversation. And at the same time, everything just keeps coming back to the fact that people are only talking about people being girls, girls to separate them from something else, from a different version of something else. But that's all I'm going to say about that. I hope that made sense. Anyways, I had a really great time this episode. Ooh, girl, I did a lot of yapping, but you know what? I had a really good time. So if you stuck around and watched and listened to the things I had to say, I really appreciate you. I'm going to be back next week, of course, and chat some more. Maybe I'll be back this week. I don't really have a bunch of stuff going on, so I might just come back and start doubling up so I can catch back up on my episodes. But yeah, I do appreciate you guys so much for listening if you did, and I'll catch you guys next week. Bye.